Welcome back to our channel. In this tutorial I'm going to take you through the basics of Microsoft Excel. If you're a beginner or if you are at intermediate level, this is a best tutorial for you. And the coverage for our tutorial is going to be from the beginner stage to the intermediate level. We are going to look at the different tools. We are going to navigate through the different tabs. We are going to see how we work with the different cells of Microsoft Excel, how we reference data, how we fix, how we copy and paste, how we drag cells, how we generate statistical data, how we use different formulas, and how we can also draft different functions in Microsoft Excel. So this tutorial is going to take you from beginner level to the intermediate level. Microsoft Excel is one of the mostly used spreadsheets that is owned by Microsoft, and it has got an online version which is called forgetting the name, Google Sheets. Alright, the name had escaped my mind. So you can as well use Google Sheets the same way you use Microsoft Excel that is installed on your desktop or on your machine. So I want you to have that in mind. So in the next time anyone asks you about Google Sheets or spreadsheets or anything or Excel, it is the same literally, so you shouldn't be confused. Alright, so when you open Microsoft Excel, this is the interface that you get. It has got a lot of tools, as you can see. It has got a lot of boxes in quotes, but we shall see how we term them when it comes to Excel. And it has got sheet 1, sheet 2, and sheet 3. So ideally when you open this, when you start your Excel file, what you open is called a workbook, a Microsoft Excel workbook. So what you interact with in a workbook are called the sheets. Like any book has got many sheets, so the same thing applies to Microsoft Excel. When you create your Excel file, we term it as a workbook. So as you're interacting with the files with your workbook, then you interact with the different sheets. So I want you to differentiate between a workbook and a worksheet. Alright, so when you open where you put your data in a worksheet, you interact with cells. So note that these are not grids, they are not boxes or anything, but they are called cells. So when it comes to Excel, anything that you type into a cell, for instance, if I type here boy, okay, Excel doesn't know the word boy, but rather it knows the cell in which you're storing your word boy. And how does it get to know this cell? It names each cell a unique number. So right now my word boy is stored in this cell, which is called, or which is named A2. So the name of the cell is showed in the name box. Where the name of the cell is displayed is called the name box. Alright, so whenever you click on the cell, its name will be displayed in the name box. As you can see, when I hover my cursor over, it shows you that this is a name box. Alright, so when it comes to Excel, we are going to be interacting with cells and the different tools that are provided by Microsoft Excel. Alright, so that's just to induct you, and keep it in mind. We shall use it for in the future. Alright, so what you're seeing at the top, where you're seeing book 1, Microsoft Excel, product what, etc. This one in red is called the title bar. This is where the title of your workbook is displayed. For instance, my workbook, I've just opened it and I've not yet saved it, so by default Excel calls it book 1, meaning that it is the only book for Microsoft Excel that I have created so far, which is why it gives it a default name of book 1. Like I told you, this is a workbook, a book with different sheets. Alright, so in the title bar, this is where name, the title of your workbook is displayed. So at the left side, at the top left corner of your workbook or your worksheet, this is where we have the quick access toolbar. And on this quick access toolbar, you're seeing different icons. The first one, the icon for Excel, the undo, the redo, the search, and the others, the save, etc. So this quick access toolbar enables us to quickly access different tools rather than navigating through Excel to find out which tool to use. So if you find that you need a tool and or there is a tool that you always use, what you can do, instead of you navigating through the different tabs to access that tool, you can just get that tool, right click on it, and then add it to the quick access toolbar, so you can always use it without navigating through. So that is the purpose of the quick access toolbar. So meaning you can always add and remove tools from the quick access toolbar by right clicking on the tool and then remove. Alright, so there are those tools that you can access. You can only access when you are at the quick access toolbar, and these ones you can add or remove them by clicking on this drop down, and then for instance this save tool icon, you can uncheck it and then it is removed from the quick access. Now for you to add it back, you cannot get it from anywhere, but rather coming back to the drop down and then you check it again. So that's about it for the quick access toolbar, and then that's the purpose of it. So when it comes down here, we have our entire ribbon now. Actually this title bar and a quick access toolbar are part of the ribbon. Alright, then the other tools on our ribbon are the ones I'm displaying and hiding. We have the file, we have the home, we have the insert, the page layout, the formulas, data, review, and view. So these different tools help us to navigate through Microsoft Excel and access these tabs help us to navigate through Microsoft Excel and access the different tools. Alright, so the different tools are categorized depending on what they are the purpose of their functionality. Alright, so they are categorized into different tabs. We have the insert where you have different tools, the page layout where you have different tools, the formulas where you have different tools, data where you have different tools, review, and then view. So you always navigate to a tab depending on the tool you want to access. So, and also on these tabs, the tools are still categorized into different partitions. You see in the first part in the home is having clipboard, and then there are tools for formatting your font. They are categorized under font. There's a tool for aligning your font, your Excel sheet, and content in it. It is called for align. It is part for alignment. The numbers, formatting your Excel content. You come to numbers, styles, cells, editing, like that. The same thing applies to the other tabs here in the insert. It is also categorized into tables, illustrations, charts, etc. So whenever maybe, if, for instance, if you want to add a chart, you have to be knowing that the chart is in the insert and then in the part for charts. Then you can go ahead and click on any chart that you're interested in, depending on what you want to achieve or display. Alright, first we have the file. Okay, so in this tab we have some of the important tools. Alright, so one of which we have the save and the save as. The save as helps us to save our file in a given location. So when you click on save as, it is going to open up this browser and it is going to ask you to browse or navigate through your machine and save your Excel workbook. Alright, so I'll call this coding, and then I want to save it on the desktop just like that. So I'll navigate to the desktop. If maybe I want still on the desktop to add a folder and save there my work, I'll click on new folder and then I'll call this Excel. Alright, then you click enter and then double click on the folder and save. Alright, so when you save your work, I told you the name for your file is displayed here, okay, in the title bar. So the next time I make changes into my worksheet and I come to file and click on save, then it will save the changes. So if I want to save the file again in a new location, still I'll click on save as. Okay, so now you understand the difference between save and save as. Saved save the new changes you've added, but save as save the new changes but in a given location. Alright, so the shortcut for saving is Ctrl S. And also you can as well use this icon in the quick access toolbar. Okay, so you can always open a new file, you can always open a new workbook from here. You can always close the workbook, and the information related to your workbook that you're working with is here. You can always give permission, for instance, if you're dealing with a sensitive data, maybe company data, and maybe for instance you are an accountant, you're working on the financial statements of your organization, and maybe you want to share with your colleagues, but then you want them to just look at them without editing or manipulating data. You can give them permissions, maybe to just edit your workbook. Okay, you can give them permissions to only read and not to manipulate data. You can give them permission to only view but not copy. Okay, a lot of things. So this is basically for security. So if you want to share a workbook, maybe if you're working in a team and you want also others to give their input but at the same time, so you can always share your workbook and you work on the same workbook with others. Right, so that's it. And we have the recent. You can always open the recent. You can create a new workbook. You go to a new and then click on create. So you create a blank workbook and you start afresh. You can always print your workbook from here and also save and send. You can save and send via web, via email, etc. You can send as PDF or XPS. Right, so that's about it for the file tab. Now let us go to the home. Okay, so you'll find that at the beginner level this is the mostly used tab, and maybe the insert and page layout. Right, so at the home, as most of all the Microsoft packages like Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Access, these tools cut across the clipboard, the font, the alignment, and numbers. All right, so these ones you'll find them in all the Microsoft packages. So the other tools that change are these ones that are particular to Microsoft Excel. All right, so here in the font, I told you can use it to format your font. For example, if I write coding, right, and then I want maybe to bold it, I'll click on bold. All right, like that. So for us to make this tutorial understandable and easy for you, I'm going to use a sample questionnaire so that it can guide us through the different tools and aspects of MS Excel. Right, so I drafted a simple question here, and I'm going to use it to navigate through. So I have some simple data, and we are going to use Microsoft Excel to generate a simple payroll for our employees at Electrical World. Alright, so I have this dummy data that I'm going to just copy, okay, and then paste in our worksheet. Alright, so I'm just going to format it well. Okay, just to make things look a little better. Okay, right, so we have our employees. Okay, we have gender, we have hours and rate and basic. So we are going to use Microsoft Excel to generate a simple payroll. Like I told you in the beginning, you can use Excel for a variety of things, and I listed data entry. You can use it for data analysis, you can use it for financial modeling, you can use it for programming as well. Alright, so right now we are going to do some bit of data entry and as well as data analysis. Alright, so we've entered the data for our employees, and now we are going to do some bit of analysis and computation against this data. Okay, so let us get started. Alright, so we are required to enter this information into our MS Excel sheet and rename it details, which we've just done. So we are supposed to give this work an appropriate title, align it to center and make it bold, underline it and color it green. So we are asked to give our work a title. Alright, so for me to add a title, it is supposed to be, of course, at the top of my data. So that means I'm required to add a blank row at the top. So this brings us to our aspect of inserting a column or row in Excel. So for you to insert a row, you need to first highlight the row where you want the row to be inserted above it. After highlighting, you right click and then click on insert. So it is going to ask me where should I shift these cells. I want them to be shifted down. So when they are shifted down, now I can be in position to add my title. I'm going to call it payroll. So we can as well merge. In Excel, there's a provision for merging all cells and make them into one cell. So you can highlight those cells you want to merge and then click on this tool for merge and center. So our title is going to come in the middle of our data. Alright, so after adding that, we are requested to put it into red. Now we have tools for changing color. Now the first one is for fill color, the second one is for font color. Here we don't want to change the font color for payroll, but we want to change the fill. So we use the fill icon to fill it with red. So I'll just bold it, and yes, we have that. Perfect. So I'll click Ctrl S to save my changes and then go back to our guide. Alright, so actually we're told green. Okay, we can still change it back to green. Right, perfect. Click on this icon to save our changes. Okay, so next one, determine the basic salary as a product of hours and rate. Okay, so we are requested to determine the basic salary, so as a product of rate and hours. Now in Excel we have what we call functions and formulas. Excel gives us provision to compute, to perform mathematical computations by either using functions or formulas. So we are going to use a function to determine our basic pay. We've been told it is a product of rate and hours worked. So if you're doing any computation in Microsoft Excel, you always start with the equal sign. Alright, and then you can go ahead to compute for whatever you want to compute. If you don't put an equal sign, Excel will think that this is just plain data. Alright, so now I want to multiply rate times the hours. So what I will do is to use the equal sign. Now remember what I told you at the beginning of this tutorial, that in Excel understands the cell, rather it doesn't understand the value. So if I want to multiply this 60 times 46, I'll just reference the cell where the 60 is by clicking on it. So you see it will bring D3, because D3 is where my rate is stored. Then I'll click on I'll add the times. Okay, the hours, still I'll click on the cell where my hours are located, and then press enter. So it will compute for our hours, and then I can always autofill. Now imagine if you're having 1,000 employees, you can't go on computing employee by employee. So Excel gives us a provision to autofill. So when you click on the one you've computed, you can always go to the bottom of that cell in the corner. Then when your icon changes to that, I don't know if you can notice the change, then you can just double click. Alright, or you can click and drag to the bottom like that. Okay, then save the changes. Alright, so we've computed for our basic salary using a simple function that multiplies. So there are many other functions that you can perform, including subtraction, addition, division, etc. Right, so we have housing allowance, which is 30% of the basic salary. So we are requested to compute for housing. Okay, so housing, we've been told it is 30% is equal, like I told you in a computation, we start with the equal sign. So 30 and then percentage symbol times to represent of basic salary. So we shall reference the cell that is storing our basic salary. Then you press enter. So again, we are going to autofill by putting our cursor to the bottom right of the cell and then double click. Alright, so we've got our housing allowance. Now let's go ahead and compute for lunch allowance, which is 10% of housing allowance. So this is lunch. Okay, so lunch is 10% of housing. Okay, then still the same. Alright, so we have to determine the gross salary for the employees. Our gross salary, remember always the gross salary is the basic salary plus all the allowance an employee receives. So these employees receive housing and lunch. So for us to get the gross, we are going to add this basic, okay, plus housing plus lunch. Right, as simple as that. So what we've done here, we've written a formula that adds, okay, basic and housing and lunch. Now when it comes to summation or to addition, Excel gives us a function. Right, we have an Excel formula that can help us sum up these ones without clicking on one by one, and that formula is called the sum. Right, when you type in sum, it will be displayed here, and then you click the tab button on your keyboard or you double click on it, and then it will bring for you this sum. So usually functions in Excel guide you on which data to input. So you see the sum is asking for number 1, number 2. For all those numbers, it is going to sum up. Alright, so in case whatever you're summing up is next to each other, you just highlight, right, by clicking on the first cell and then drag your cursor to where you want to stop and then press enter. So it will give you the same thing and then still autofill. Alright, so in case you're using the sum function, for instance, in case you're using the sum function and maybe the cells are not next to each other, assuming if we had a column here, if we had another column here for comment maybe, right, and yet you want to add this and this and this using the sum. Okay, so you realize here you can't just drag and to the last column, because comment is not part of our gross. So what you can do is to highlight after where you stop, then put a comma and then click on the next one, then you press enter. Alright, so that's how you can use the sum for separated cells that are not close to each other. Alright, so hope you've gotten that. Now let us go ahead and compute for NSSF. NSSF, it is 5% of gross, the same way we did for housing and lunch. So this is a piece of cake, I assume. Okay, this is equal to I said it is 5% of gross. We press enter so we can always autofill this. Alright, and then click save. Okay, so we are requested to calculate for payee. When you go down, we have some additional information on how we are supposed to compute for payee. Alright, so when it comes to the payee, we are supposed to use what we call an if statement, because you realize that there are employees whose income is not taxable. There are employees who are taxable 10%. There are employees who are taxable 20%. So for you to categorize these different employees basing on their amount that and their income that they earn, you have to use a function, a formula Excel provides us with, which is called an if statement. Alright, so we need to compute for payee. So this is a tricky one, so you need to first understand the basic if, how a simple if works, and then you can always use the if statement to write a complex functionality or logic. So I'm going to first take you through how a simple if works, and then after you can do what? You can go ahead and follow on the payee. Alright, so we are going to go to the if and see how it works.